KP Sharma Oli has submitted his resignation. That's the latest information that's coming in from Nepal on day 2 of widespread protests and violence in the country. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has submitted his resignation. Remember, a number of his ministers had also resigned earlier in between yesterday and today after the protests that had happened, the Gen Z protests that are going on. There are a lot of calls being made by the protesters for the Prime Minister to resign, and we're getting you information that's coming in that KP Sharma Oli has in fact submitted his resignation. Remember, several cabinet ministers had earlier quit or announced their intention to resign, citing the current protests, the current violent protests that are going on. In fact, Prithvi Subha Gurung had earlier said that KP Sharma Oli will not resign, but now we are getting information that the Prime Minister has in fact resigned from his post, even as the protests are continuing in Nepal. The protesters have attacked several ministerial homes. They've attacked the parliament. They've tried to enter Oli's private residence. They've also entered the president's residence. The violence and the protests on the streets of Nepal continue as the protesters have been talking about rampant corruption in the country. They have been talking about economic losses. They've been talking about unemployment. They've been talking about how the government is not working for the people, and now it seems that the Prime Minister has tendered his resignation. Remember, this is day 2 of the widespread violent protests across Nepal. Just a few minutes ago, we were looking at the attacks on Oli's ministers. Cabinet ministers were being attacked. Their homes were being set on fire, and now the information that has come in is that KP Sharma Oli has in fact resigned. This seems to be a win for this Gen Z revolution that is going on. It seems that there may be a regime change in Nepal. Remember, just a short while ago, we were reporting on how KP Sharma Oli had asked the army to now step in, and the army chief had reportedly asked Oli to step down. Now it seems that has in fact happened as KP Sharma Oli has tendered his resignation. Remember, the protesters have been calling for his resignation. They've been asking, they've in fact raising slogans telling him to leave. They've been calling for action against the corrupt leaders. They've in fact targeted several houses of ministers. And now with KP Sharma Oli's resignation, it remains to be seen how the protesters are going to be responding as this news breaks across Nepal. We are getting you visuals also from the ongoing protests that are going on in the streets of Nepal. This is not just Kathmandu. Remember, multiple districts and multiple cities in Nepal are currently seeing widespread violence and protests against the Oli government. And it seems that now it is a big win for the protesters as KP Sharma Oli has resigned. Remember, since yesterday, there were fires set. The protesters had set the political party offices on fire. They had set on fire the home of the former Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba. They tried to also attack Oli's personal residence in Balkot. They had attacked several homes of several of the ministers, including also attacked police posts across Nepal. There was stone pelting, there were fires being set all across Kathmandu and other districts. And that all through the protesters have been telling KP Sharma Oli to resign. They've been talking about widespread corruption, widespread nepotism, in fact, of ministers' families profiting while the ordinary people of Nepal look for jobs, while they look for some sort of help. And now it seems that KP Sharma Oli has in fact resigned. Rohit is joining me on the phone line from Kathmandu. Rohit, you've been on the ground since late yesterday. What are you picking up right now? KP Sharma Oli has resigned. He said that the army, he's asked the army to help. He's also asked the army to give him safe passage outside of Kathmandu. What are you picking up from the ground right now?
Well, Anisha, see, it seems that KP Sharma Oli has finally relented, and as was communicated to him by the army chief, that he must quit his post if some sort of a peace and normalcy has to return to Nepal. And it seems that now finally Mr. Oli has resigned from his post as the Prime Minister of Nepal. And now begins the bigger challenge as to who will be forming the next government in Nepal, or whether Nepal will go for elections, and whether the protests that have been going on for the last 24 hours or so in the Himalayan kingdom, what happens to that protest, because it's not only the ban on 26 social media platforms that these protesters were opposing, but ever since the ban on the social media platforms are revoked, still since morning today, we are seeing that a massive protest witnessed in Kathmandu, in Nepal. So clearly goes on to show that it was not only the social media platform blocking that the protesters, the Gen Z were opposing, but there was a bigger goal, the bigger intention of dislodging the government, which according to the youth of Nepal was a corrupt government, and it lacked any kind of transparency. There was high inflation in Nepal, and there are several, you see, there were a lot of complaints as far as the current dispensation in Nepal was concerned. So now it seems because of the growing protest in the last 24 hours or so, which was witnessed in Nepal, the Prime Minister, Mr. Oli, has finally relented, and in order to bring back peace and normalcy, he has tendered his resignation. But it will be very
On the ground in Birganj, if I'm correct, there has been a curfew imposed in Birganj also since yesterday. You're on the ground and I can hear a lot of noise behind you. What is going on around you? Can you describe what is the ground situation in Birganj right now?
In Birganj also, since yesterday evening, the protest started here, because early in the day yesterday we saw that it was in Kathmandu, which was the epicenter of all the protests and all the violence that was taking place. But later in the evening, this entire protest spanned across Nepal, including Birganj, which is located on the Indo-Nepal border. And because the situation went out of hand in Birganj, also the curfew was imposed from 9 p.m. yesterday till early morning, till today morning 9 p.m. But since morning today also we saw that fresh round of protests started taking place near the Ghantaghat Chowk in Birganj, and hundreds of protesters vandalized a lot of several government properties, government buildings have been vandalized, government vehicles have been set on fire, and the protesters have pelted stone at the police force, and we are seeing that the situation in Birganj is also extremely tense, following which the administration has extended the curfew till 6 p.m. this evening. So the situation both in Kathmandu and in Birganj remains completely on the boil.